Welcome everyone to a new episode of the Ol'Timers Comic Book Show, where most aren't old, the comics most certainly are. As always, joining us through this trek through time, we have the Smith Crusader and of course the Professor. Gentlemen, how are you doing?
We're doing well, thank you, Johnny.
Buenos dias.
Buenos dias, senor.
What's up, 13? How are you?
Doing all right.
Okay. Excellent. So this time around, we're going to look at this thing, this modern day, I don't know, what is it, modern day calculus effect. Every 5-week month we get the dreaded fill-in annuals. Dun, dun, dun. But back in the day, these things used to be some pretty big deals, right?
They used to be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Way back in the days. The books are old, but we're not.
Back. Yeah, exactly.
So when was the last time we got annuals? Because I don't think we got any in 2020.
I think DC put a couple out, but I'd have to go back.
I know DC was putting out a good portion of them over the last few years, but I think Marvel's kind of gotten away from them because they've upped their print. They've upped their publishing up to like 16 books a year instead of 12 for a lot of their core books. So,
and this also this leads into a great point because, Bud, you remember, and 13th you'll remember as well. Back before the big events that kind of took over the big two, annuals would be the one thing every year that would lead a story through the entire range. Think back, the Evolutionary War, Atlantis attacks, all these kind of stories would play out through the annuals. Some with regular artists and regular writers, some with guest artists, writers.
I would argue that that's where the event books started, was through the annuals.
Yeah, the days of self-contained events within an annual book. Very hard to find nowadays.
Cool. So, but back in the day, annuals were a big thing. It was a chance to get more pages for your book. It was a chance for you to still see the great creators of the time working on comics because, the industry wasn't saturated back then, so you were going to get the regular writers, the regular artists on there. So, an opportunity for you to see something quite staggering. I think this first one we're going to look at has a couple of first appearances in it. And not just one. Dos. That's how many. Yeah. And it's a biggie. So let me start us off. And we're going to go with Fantastic Four Annual number 6. Whose choice was this? Was this yours, Professor?
It was mine. I wanted when we decided to do annuals, I wanted to pick an annual that actually something happened that was important to the entire Marvel universe, and it was between this one and it was between Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 1 for me, which was the first appearance of the Sinister Six. Right?
I love that book.
Talk a little bit about like the history of Marvel with their annuals, because ever since Marvel first debuted, I think maybe year 2 or 3 was when we started getting annuals for Amazing Spider-Man, Fantastic Four. We did Avengers. You name it. The main storyline of Silver Age books, they all got an annual. For a couple of years, we got original stories, and then I think this one might be the last original Fantastic Four stories for like 10 years. Whoa. We didn't get original stories in the annuals from like 1967 to 1976. And once 1976 came about, and they started really, really doing annuals again after they canceled all the giant size books. They started redoing annuals with original stories as opposed to reprints. So there's your history lesson right now. But
well done.
This book I picked because, first of all, it's Lee and Kirby, the original creative team. We have the first time, or not really the first time, but the first major story where they go into the negative zone. and we have the first appearance of Annihilus,
Mm-hmm.
and we also get what I want to say, kind of like the culmination, is the first throwaway appearance, really, of Franklin, because Sue is not in this book until the very, very end, the last page, when they finally get back to normal here, and they and Sue gives birth to Franklin, who doesn't even have a name. And just to let you know, Franklin will not get a name for another, I think, at least another year before they actually name him Franklin.
Cool.
It's interesting, but this book for me was Kirby at his greatest.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you think that this is around the same time of, we're probably a year removed from the Galactus saga, the Inhumans, the Black Panther. So this is kind of Lee and Kirby when they were pumping on all cylinders. And just from the splash page here, where you have Reed looking into this futuristic, his negative zone camera. Come on. How do you get more Kirby than that? Unless it's in the same pages of this book. Because you could, as you turn the pages, I know Johnny can't stand the 4 panels or the panel pages.
Don't be dissing the pill.
Jack Kirby's panel layouts were always linear, right? They're always 4 panels, 6 panels. He doesn't take a lot because he works so much, right? He does so much work. He doesn't have time for like the extra panel design. So he just has his layouts. But just looking at, like, every time you turn the page and go back to that double page spread there.
There you go.
This is Kirby experimenting at his best, right? And he was doing this. He did this for like a year, and every single issue of Fantastic Four, he would have this like photo stat page where he would have like whatever clippings, artwork, or whatever he could get to put into like a realistic page, and then just pencil something over it. Actually, it's obviously a cutout. If you look at Johnny, he like penciled a cutout of Johnny Storm and cut him out and pasted him there. But this was something that we weren't seeing in comics at all, right? Kirby was just kind of breaking new ground. Every time you picked up a issue of Fantastic Four, there was something new that you hadn't seen before, whether or not it was something new in the Marvel Universe or something new artistic wise from Kirby, where he was really kind of just pushing the envelope, and just his characters. Every single panel is there's action happening. There's a movement. There's a kinetic fluidity to just about everything. You can't take your eyes off the art for a second. And honestly, Stan's writing is secondary in this book. You could turn the pages and just see Kirby greatness coming off the page on this. Right.
So
sorry, go ahead.
No. I agree with you. The art's fantastic, but where I stand on Kirby. I think Kirby's a fantastic talent. Helped create the Marvel Universe, gave it its distinctive look. As a writer, maybe not so much, not so great.
Not at all.
You need Stan's script to give some sort of context to what's going on. Let's talk some money before we go too far into this. So this came out in November 68. A mid-grade book cost you £350. However,
really?
That's all. That's mid-grade. That's 5.5. So it goes all the way up to £1,000. There you go. I
actually have this book. It's the first Fantastic Four annual I ever bought, and I found it for cheap. And at the time when I bought it, I didn't know it was in Annihilus's first appearance, and I did not know it was Franklin's first appearance. Yeah, so cool. It was a surprise to me. It's not in great shape, but when I actually read the story, this is actually my gateway to Jack Kirby. So it was the first book I ever bought that had, I had seen Kirby's artwork before, and I'm ashamed to say DC Superpowers, if you remember that from the 80s. but seeing this, like, it actually kind of educated me, teenage me, a little bit on what Kirby really meant to comics and what he meant to the Fantastic Four, and just kind of seeing this. I mean, this artwork that he's doing here is light years above the efforts he was putting forward in the 80s and his second go around in Marvel from like 1976 when he was doing Captain America. This stuff is way better. Cool.
Excellent. Okay, 13th. Do you agree? Because I know you're a Kirby fan from your DC love. So do you agree with it for Fantastic Four?
Yeah, definitely. From the artistic perspective, I don't think there are very few artists that can match drawing machinery the way Jack Kirby does. You could totally tell that there's just so many designs, even within the most basic equipment. For instance, even with that first splash page where Reed is peering into the negative zone. So definitely I appreciate it for that. And even like some of the background art, where we're not the background art necessarily, but some, like when Reed's pulling out a picture of the negative zone, even the detail in that, to draw something as chaotic as a negative zone, really is, I mean, there's just so many designs in there, and you can kind of get, like Bud said, you can get lost in the art list of looking at it, appreciating it, even with the photography side of things, that experimentation. Yeah, that's a classic Kirby thing. People know that for now. Even in the New Gods, you see that. So that's just another example of Kirby being Kirby. Yeah, the story overall, it is important. Analyst has made his appearances, and he's definitely a force to be reckoned with. So it was interesting to kind of read, his first go around in the Marvel universe, and everything like that with the Fantastic Four. Overall, it's, I mean, the script, it's not the best I've ever read, but it suits its purpose for an annual. It's a self-contained story, like you said earlier. You don't see those too often anymore. It's a classic FF tale where the anxiety level that, as a reader, like, I don't know about you guys, but I had like anxiety reading this story, because why they're going into the negative zone in the first place is because they have to save Sue Storm. The Fantastic Four can't be the Fantastic Four without any one of those people. So, this is
although they do try after they do try that later on. Though,
correct, right? But this is still very much a family-oriented team. And the classic FF is exactly that, all the way through issue 100, the annuals. So here you have the very first time where Sue Storm and Reed Richards, they're expecting a child, but in classic Marvel fashion, the level of drama, the level of anxiety, what it means, and oh my God, if her life is in danger, and so is the child. All of that led to this adventure and going into the negative zone in the first place. So I appreciated that a lot with Fantastic Four, where they were Marvel's kind of vehicle to get readers exposed to other realms and realities. And the perfect artist for that, obviously, was Jack Kirby. So, I mean, the splash panels where you have Reed, Thing, and Torch going into the negative zone, trying to escape the negative zone. That's just classic Kirby and FF. But at the end of the story, there's a happy ending. Everybody's fine, and you get to see the birth of Benjamin Button. I mean, I'm sorry, Franklin Richards.
So let me just add a couple of things. Can there be a bad guy that's any Kirby-er than Annihilus and the Kirby Crackle? Just on like that Kirby Crackle has been ripped off by every artist in Marvel history. You don't have one in this page, but I mean, there's like 100 of them in this book. So I love that. So.
Yeah, even like the other characters, and what I mean by that are like the reporters, the doctor. Like, he gave these people life. It didn't just feel like a cardboard cutout. You know what I mean? And I liked it. It really felt like you could really immerse yourself into the story. And not many artists can accomplish that. And then in this era too, this wasn't easy to put this many pages together, come up with this fantastic idea, no pun intended, to go into another dimension. You got to create creatures. What is this universe going to look like? Who rules it? Even that the gunship by analysts, like the design detail from an artistic perspective, I could never ever imagine in my wildest dreams drawing something like that. And that's why Kirby's the king.
Do you think that so this is 68, so this is budget bang on right? It's after the big hits of Galactus and the Surfer and the Black Panther. Do you think at this point in the Fantastic Four and Lee and Kirby's work on it, do you think that this is probably the last big kind of go at it? Because truth be told, whilst this might be fluid, it is kind of routine for the Fantastic Four going off into the negative zone. They did it against Galactus to get the nullifier. So Johnny Storm came back with PTSD. So, the whole thing. So what do you think? Do you think this is probably the last hurrah before the kind of changes that we talk about? Because obviously Sue drops out for a while. Thing loses his powers eventually and comes back again, and you have Crystal and all that other stuff going on. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, I think that up there is a creative endpoint for Lee and Kirby where towards the end of their historic run in '69 that Kirby wasn't trying so hard. I feel like that they were running out of ideas. If you read the last, I want to say 10 or 15 issues of the Lee Kirby run of Fantastic Four, the quality is just not as good as before. So I do think you have a point there. But yeah, this book was classic Lee Kirby. What happened in this issue, just as big as anything they were doing, introducing the Inhumans, the like high action, the drama, the just like caring about what happened to Sue at the end of the book. I think that you're right. This is probably the creative ending to Lee and Kirby. I think after this, you're right. Like I said, the last 10 or 15 issues, just not the quality's not there.
Just to confirm,
or the quality's not as high. I don't want to say it's not.
That's a fair shout. In the last 10, 15 issues, is that when the Skrull became cows? Do you remember that story? Was that then?
No, that was issue 2, I think. Didn't
Was
they?
it? Oh, there we are. talk about crazy ideas. Let's take over the earth one bovine at a time. 13, what do you think? Do you think this is the apex of their work on the Fantastic Four?
Who else could create a cosmic SpongeBob that chases the Human Torch?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
and
then continue to create them for every other character for DC as well.
Yeah, this was a highway into the the negative zone.
Oh dear God!
It's classic. It's totally classic. It is gold. And to everyone's point here, really, this book, it does mean a lot, especially for Marvel now with Franklin Richards for sure. I mean, this is where he was born, and there's a story behind it.
Well, if you look at this book through the lens of today, I mean, yeah, you can't talk about this book without talk about how Silver Age Marvel marginalized women and how Sue's only on the last page. Even Crystal's relegated to midwife almost in this book. There is, I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but when you look at it through the lens, there's a lot of things that Marvel did in the 60s that just, they wouldn't do today.
Well, that's fine because we take that as a given, right?
Yeah.
The fact that when we look at these books, we are not looking at today's societal rules and putting them across it. We're saying, right, this is a piece of history, and how you look at this piece of history depends on your personal perception. It's like going back and saying Captain Kirk was a sex pest because he kept kept sleeping with these female officers. You couldn't do that nowadays. And you're
Hey.
like, well,
At least he was equal opportunity.
yeah. So yeah, aliens, well, whatever. But the issue, I suppose, when you look at it from that point of view, you know, does Star Trek, the original show, talk about how you're supposed to just go around sleeping with loads of women and not have a care for the feelings? Well, no, that's not what Star Trek's remembered for. Star Trek's remembered for its idea of peace, human, you know, going out and exploring new worlds, a group of together, overcoming the social issues. But there are going to be those times when we look back at things and they'll be a little bit like, oh, you can't do that now. Captain Marvel with Carol Danvers, only this weekend, I retweeted a Dave Cockrum piece of art when she was wearing the leotard and the thigh highs, and I said, this is my favorite Carol suit. I don't care. I don't care that people say, oh, you can't do that nowadays. Well, I don't care. I've been around this world too long, and I've got too many comic books, and I actually have that first appearance of that suit, so that's my favorite one. So
I agree with you.
Cool, excellent. One thing I will say about looking through the lens of this, man, Reed Richards, what a douchebag.
Yep. Yes.
Man, he talks down to everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I tell you, if I was Ben Grimm, I'd be it'd be clobbering time like good.
Every panel.
Yeah, every percentage of every day.
Yeah, and then I think the thing is really the good looking on the bright side of things the entire issue.
Yeah, which is odd.
Yeah.
But then that goes, I suppose that goes to what I was saying, how far the Fantastic Four have traveled from their inception to this point. This is, from when I read this book, whilst I get it's the beginning because we've got Franklin, it also felt like a bit of a closure. It's kind of like with the birth of the son or birth of the child, then it's because I don't want to misgender him. Birth of Franklin, it's like they've gone from being boyfriend, girlfriend,
baby button,
fiancés, now married, and that's it. That's kind of, you've done it now. You know, even Johnny's got his squeeze in with Crystal. Ben's seeing Alicia at this point. That's it. It's done. So it felt more like a closure more than a reopening, I suppose. But it is Kirby at his best.
For sure.
And Reed at his douchebaggish. Right. Okay. 1 down, 2 to go. Who's up next? Tell you what's up next. One of our fantastic adverts, one of our other shows, whilst we get ready for the 13th pick. I'll say, I'm not saying anything. I'll save my punchline till after
Thank you.
The advert. It's all right. You're welcome. So whilst we get ready for that, here's one of the adverts for the Jank Think Tank, which is our new Magic the Gathering show. Go and check this out. I'm not going to say I know what the hell's going on with Magic the Gathering, but last time I tried to play, I did not win with a busted flush. I'm glad somebody laughed at that. Cheers, thanks.
I try to get my kids to show me how to play, and I have no idea.
Yeah, Joshua, we need your help. There you go. So if you want to know about the Jank Think Tank, Magic the Gathering, go check out the show. They are going to be doing some tutorials, I am led to believe, down the line. So there you go. Because it does look kind of fun. Right, next up is the 13th Crusaders choice. And I swear to God, this 13th talks about this character more times than my wife talks about him. And my wife really fancies Chris Hemsworth. That's right. It's Thor Annual number 10 from August 1982. 13th. Did you know that this book is you can get for around a £5 to £13?
Look at that. Why do you think I picked it?
£13. Bless your cotton socks, eh? Let me get it up for you. As they say, that's what she said. There we go. All right, so it is co-written by Mark Grunwald, Professor's favorite person of all time, and Alan Zalest, art by Bob Hall, inks by, are you ready? It's a long list. We've got Rick Bryant, Joe Rubenstein, Andy Mushinsky, Al Gordon, Kevin Dusban. There you go. Cool. Letters by Rick Parker and colours by George Roussos. So more Thor, more Mephisto. It's like I was only here a fortnight ago.
Hey, well, this could be the very first show where we don't mention Bill Mantlo.
Yeah.
But now that I did, now
oh. We should run an advert that says this show will be Bill Mantlo free. Guaranteed.
So the same way, like we mentioned that we should get royalties, what about every time we mention Mephisto?
Yeah, let's do that.
That's true.
So, as we will in a few moments.
So why'd you pick this book?
Yeah, so basically as a kid, I was always enamored with Greek mythology eventually...
Let me stop you there. You said enamored. He's the dude under the sea. He's got nothing to do with Thor.
Mythological tales machine.
All right, okay.
Yes. So as a kid, going to school, I got exposed to literature with Greek mythology, and I was collecting comics at the time, and I was always, kind of like, into that stuff. I just couldn't get enough. So obviously that graduated into Norse mythology. I started reading a lot about Norse mythology, and naturally Thor the comic book existed. So that got me hooked onto Thor. Plus, not to mention all the nice reruns I used to watch of the Thor cartoons, the 60s Thor cartoons. So I couldn't get enough. So once upon a time, out came this annual. And this annual pretty much kind of just opened up my world of what the Marvel mythology was about. And I liked how it started with, like, once upon a time there was a sun, then it was the earth. So you got that cosmic historical perspective of Marvel on how the gods came to be. And as a longtime comic book collector, nobody does gods like Marvel. Marvel, just the way that they would throw gods out there, it was just very detailed, great designs, great stories, great origins, and this one's no different with the origin of the gods. So not only do you see what happens in the first few pages, you get to learn about the elder gods, the gods that came before the gods that people may be more familiar with. And one of these gods, who I can't pronounce, Chthon, is that how you say it?
Chthon, yeah.
Chthon, yeah. So this is the guy that wrote the Darkhold. For those of you who are watching Scarlet Witch, she's reading the Darkhold. He's the one that wrote it. He's the author of the book. So Gaia, obviously, the mother of Thor, eventually. Set, the main antagonist of Atlantis Attacks, another great group of annuals that we mentioned a short while ago. This is their origin story. And then Gaia's son with Atom, or Atom, I guess. I just love the first few pages, and then obviously that morphs into the creation of all the gods, all the different pantheons, the diversity, and their different powers and their different kingdoms, and the different peoples that they represented, or civilizations. So I like that. So I was like, wow, this is great. So now I got a really good sense of the Marvel universe from the mythological sense. But what I liked even more as I kept going, what Alan Zelenitz, if that's how you pronounce it, I didn't expect all the death gods to kind of get together and have a business meeting. They're like, business is bad, so we should merge. So we should have a merger.
Is that Trump on the throne to the left there? Is that what you're saying?
Quite possibly, yes. So for Marvel readers at this time, they knew who Hela was. They knew who Pluto or Hades was, and they certainly knew who Mephisto was. Very few may have known about Set, the Egyptian death god, but he had made an appearance. So this was a very historical gathering of death gods. So, to put it in a joking term, business is bad. We need a merger, and we need to do something. If we merge, maybe we can profit better.
Maybe we can make a killing.
Exactly. Exactly. What the hell, right? And what the hell has exactly happened? And in doing that, they actually released Adam, who is a god eater. And when he is the god eater, he is known as the Demogorg, the god eater. And that's literally what he does. And he just kind of recycles gods, as he did earlier in the historical sense, as readers will see. I'm not going to ruin it all, but obviously a creature like this that can absorb and eat gods is going to be extremely difficult to stop. So, Odin gets wind of it, and he, back in those days in 1982, you didn't have cell phones. So what do? You just walk to a tree, cut off a branch, throw it in a pool, and you can communicate with the other Sky Fathers. So that's what he did. See, that's a bad joke that no one's going to laugh at. Maybe one person out there. That's good enough for me. But either way, they realized the threat, and each pantheon, what I was saddened to see was that there wasn't dialogue, but you can kind of sense that this wasn't a joke. It even says it there that Odin really didn't resort to this unless absolutely necessary, but it was necessary, and each pantheon decided to send their champion. So obviously the Norse champion was Thor, and he's there with other champions. There's a great splash panel there. I always like this art page in here, the splash panel with all the champions getting ready to go to battle. There's thunder gods, there's sun gods. So they're rushing. Yes. Awesome panel. I like that one. So they go to this new combined hell to fight the Demogorg, and by the time they get there, almost all the death gods are gone. And it's like, man, this guy, this creature just tore through all those death gods like nothing. And now it's up to these guys to try to figure out what to do. Long story short, the last one standing, literally Thor, everybody's like fighting to the death, and Thor's the last one, and he's like, screw it, I'll just throw myself in there. So as ironic as that may sound, that kind of triggered the creature to revert to its original form and spit out all the gods that it devoured, and saying that it wasn't his time to devour every being, but he will one day. So it's kind of like a grim warning. One thing you don't see too often with Thor and Hela is more of it's hard for me to kind of put it into words, but more of a friendly exchange. So, but here's one example where that happens. Hela's job, she's the goddess of death in Norse mythology. This is just her job. You know what I mean? But here she is with Thor, and one thing she always has had constant is she does acknowledge Thor as the prince of the realm and Odin as the king at the end of the day. But here you could see Hela having some sort of
she wants to kiss him, she wants to love him, even though he is a cousin.
A true Asgardian song. But I guess the theme of this really is I love it for the historical sense. I love it for all the team up and the mashup of gods trying to take on this being that one day will kick all their asses. And this creature obviously would be instrumental later on. So it wasn't his last appearance, but the thought of something out there, to Odin's point, is like, look, we got out of today, enjoy today, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. And I guess that's what I kind of took out of the book. But I love the art overall and the historical sense from the mythological standpoint.
We've talked about Bob Hall a lot recently. His name's cropped up a couple of times, more than a couple of times. I have to say that I think the first few panels of this book, the first few pages, are probably some of the best stuff that I've seen from him.
Agreed.
From the more traditional superhero stuff that we sometimes see. This here is, I don't know, it just looks another level. I don't know. It just works. It gets a bit wonky towards it. I mean, that panel of Thor there. I mean, come on, what's going on with these wings on his head? One's forward, one's back. It's like, what's he got? Dalmatian ears? What's
It's
that all
windy.
about? Yeah, pretty. His hair's not moving. Then. All right, Professor.
So I did want to mention the first few pages of the mythology piece where Bob Hall is kind of goes to town here. It almost kind of gives the artwork almost like a biblical feel,
Right.
like we kind of feel like this is godlike, and it needs to be more majestic and grand, and it doesn't really look comic booky, right? It looks very much this is the history, right? And this is real
page. I love this page.
and this is kind of the first time that you see someone try to put together all the different types of stories that we've seen from Marvel 20 years prior, right? So you have whoever this writer is, because I've never seen him in any other form, and perhaps Mark Grunwald is probably more responsible for the continuity of everything than anything else. But yeah, the thing that weighed on me on this issue was just how much information there is just to kind of devour in this issue, especially if you're not, if you're not schooled in mythology. There's so many gods in here, so even so many gods that you don't normally see. They're not main characters. They're just Thor, but you didn't know anybody else. Maybe Apollo because of
Right.
Greek mythology, but you didn't know anybody else on the page, and you didn't know anybody else in the book really. So to me, that was kind of where I don't want to say that I had trouble getting through it, because at the end of the day, it was a pretty good story, and the this annual Thor annual number 10 with Atom and Demigorge is actually figuring greatly into the Null storyline that's currently going on in Marvel right now. The Null's origins are steeped in this particular comic book. So if anybody likes the history of everything that's going on now in Marvel, I don't imagine you'd be listening to this podcast if you cared about what was going on in Marvel now. But this book that someone actually mined an annual from 40 years ago. I don't have this book. This is the first time I've ever really read it. I thought it was good. Like I said, a little tough to get through. It was very wordy, and with all of the information that they were throwing at me, especially at the beginning of the book, for me to retain by the end of the book was, I think this is an important book as far as what they're doing now. But
so we have to have a meeting on how best to cross promote ourselves here. So if you so what Professor meant to say was, if you are interested in the current Marvel shenanigans and the King in Black storyline, check out the No Prize podcast, because our friend Lucas, he has gone to town with this. He has researched it to the nth degree. He has gone PowerPoint bonkers. So if you read this book and you think it's having an impact now, go check out No Prize, because No Prize has all the King in Black stuff going on right now. All right,
hosted by me.
There you go. See, that's how you cross promote.
Thank you, Johnny. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I knew I was here for a reason. So the Thor stories always come in like two different types to me. There's the ones where he's just doing something crazy, like throwing down with the Hulk, which we've seen a few times on the show. And then there's the ones that are steeped in Norse mythology, and somewhere they never fall in between. All right, so you this is a different take than the Hulk, than the Thor character we've seen most recently, because he was taking on the Hulk in one issue, then he was in the The Incredible Hulk 300 with the Avengers doing the same thing again. Sometimes for me, and I feel the same way about Wonder Woman to an extent, is because I'm not super passionate about the mythology. Part of my brain switches off. That said, this just goes to show you how different comic books can be. It doesn't always have to be wall crawlers and superheroes. Right? This is pretty adult material. You know, it's in there. It's pretty graphic, apart from the time when Thor throws his hammer at the thing, it bounces off him. But it's pretty graphic. You know, there's the whole metaphysical elements in here as well. So if you were reading this back in the day as a kid, you'd be like, "What is going on?" Right? This wasn't a book for kids back then. This was a kid for your dads. Oh, sorry, this was a book for your dads. And reading back on it now, I think it still holds up as that. To be honest, you know, I think there is there's a Thor trappings, of course. It's Thor, right? So verily and all that sort of stuff. But apart from that, this book could come out this year, and you'd be like, "Wow, this book's fantastic." So I think that shows you how well this book stands the test of time.
Yeah, I actually think Thor's a supporting character in this book.
Yeah. We agree with that. Yeah, it's about the mythology and how it impacts. Yeah,
and then the good thing in this book too, they even map out the realms of Asgard.
Yeah,
right.
You hear all these words that no one can pronounce, but here they are in a map. So now you know where everything is. So I like that about this book too.
Just in case you lost it the last time you looked, right?
Exactly.
Let's have a look. See if we can. Let's see if I can find the map. There we are. Got that on there. Perfect. Yeah. Makes you wonder what you needed the Rainbow Bridge for, the Bifrost, because it's like
that to me was an interesting map because if you kind of compare this to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, where all the different realms are actually they're like other dimensions almost, really. And that's why you need the Bifrost to get from here to there. But every time you see Asgard, even in the comics, it's an island unto itself, floating in space. And here you see that it's just part of a greater whole of a land,
of a larger island,
a way larger. I like the fact that they have Valhalla and Hell up on the top there.
Yeah.
So basically, when you die, you just move north.
Yeah, and every god aspired to go into the enchanted chasm. That's in
Wait a
Valhalla.
minute. I live in the north. What are you trying to say? Right.
Just saying.
Fair enough. No, it's an interesting. I like it when comic books do something like this. I just think it adds a lot to it. So that was good. No, interesting read for sure, as they say somewhere in the world that's attempted to be Boston. All right, okay, next one.
It's terrible. That was terrible.
Sorry. But I can't do the Boston twang at all. All right, so next up is my choice. And when I thought about annuals, very much like the Professor, for me there was only a choice of two. I will say that Amazing Spider-Man was kind of on my short list, but then I didn't want to get into the argument of who's better, Steve Ditko or Jack Kirby. So I went with the other one that kind of always springs to mind when I think about Marvel annuals, and it's, of course, Avengers Annual number 10. Okay, this is a biggie. The amount of impact that this book still has in the Marvel Universe is massive. So, Avengers Annual number 10, costing anywhere between £24.99 or £300. Crazy.
Oh, right.
Book is.
I was just going to say what for, but
harsh.
Right.
All right. So this book came out in October 1980. It is written by Chris Claremont, art by Michael Golden, who I have to say I don't think gets enough press. and didn't do enough work. Inks by Amanda Gill, letters by Joe Rosen, and colours by someone called M. Golden. So I'm assuming that's Michael again. All right, so the headline for Avengers 10. This is the one. This is where Rogue takes out Miss Marvel. That's it. However, there is shed loads of other things that happen in this book. So, Professor, we'll start with you. King Size and Annual Avengers number 10. What did you think?
First of all, I think this is the worst cover in the history of any Avengers book, or maybe Marvel altogether. There's just so much going on in this cover that it's tough to even get a sense of what this book is about. But I mean, other than that, once you get inside, it seems like each one of these stories is a different chapter in the book. First of all, what struck me is the artwork by Golden, because this is not your typical Avengers artwork of the time. It's also not your typical X-Men art of the time as well. It's a different style. So it almost took me out of the story a little bit. And then you get characters like Spider-Woman, who previously really hasn't been interacting with the rest of the Marvel universe. She's off in San Francisco, so she's out there with, basically nobody. So seeing her in this book, and then seeing Carol, and here, I think that now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think this is like the only Avengers stuff Chris Claremont ever wrote. But this is more of like a X-Men book, especially at the beginning, because you don't see the Avengers until you're 25% of the way through the book. But you see the X-Men, and to me, I kind of originally thought this might be more of an X-Men heavy story,
right?
Which it doesn't really end up being. So when you see what I think that Claremont was trying to achieve here, and this is not the first appearance of the new Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, but I think it's the first time the Avengers have ever seen them. I don't think the Avengers ever fought the Brotherhood, and I don't know if the Avengers ever really do you think they ran into the new X-Men prior to this?
Off the top of my head, I can't say that they did, to be fair. I mean, I don't. I think probably the only time I can think is when Beast joined the Avengers, and that was way after this.
But as far as new X-Men, they were only a few years old at best.
Right. So that's where I kind of think, because and even in the mid '80s, the X-Men didn't really cross over with anybody. They were kind of living in their own universe, and you never really saw them. So this was my first exposure to the X-Men meeting the Avengers, and up to that point, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, where you were kind of used to. I was used to mutants being in X-Men, and that was it pretty much, with the exception of Scarlet Witch. The thing, I'll go into the elephant in the room of this story, which is, I think the basics reason Claremont wrote this was not Rogue. I agree. I don't think he wrote this to debut Rogue. I don't think anybody expected Rogue to become what she did. But he wanted to fix, or not really fix, but call out the Avengers, or the Avengers number 200 writer Jim Shooter, to call them out on the carpet for their reaction or their nonchalantness in Avengers 200, which ruined Carol's character up to that point. And here, Carol calls out the Avengers on exactly what they did, basically betraying her, and really kind of not giving two craps whether or not she gave birth to her lover and was kidnapped and taken back to Limbo, and without nary a word from any of the Avengers, not even Captain America. And that made this, especially at the end, a very uncomfortable read
Hmm.
because you realize how traumatized Carol was, and as well she should have been. But I think this was Claremont's way of basically calling Shooter out on the carpet and saying, like, poor writing there, and I'm going to do what I can to maybe save Carol. And I don't know at the end of this book if that's really successful, but it was very successful in making me feel uncomfortable that Avengers number 200 book was ever published. So,
It's funny. It's funny you mentioned, because in my notes, it absolutely, I totally agree with you on this. Actually, we talked earlier on in the show about how we look through comic books of the time through the prism of today's society.
oh yeah,
Even going back and reading to issue 200 of Avengers, even if you think back to what it was like in the 80s, it is still a pretty rough deal. You don't need to sort of use any sort of societal impact from nowadays to go back and say, this happened. It was Avengers 200 has to be, if it's not the worst, it's in the top 2 worst superhero books of all time.
well, it was tone deaf for even 1980.
It was awful. It's an awful book, and you know how much I love Carol Danvers, so
Yeah.
But okay, I agree. Some of the art. I mean, we showed a panel earlier with Kitty Pryde, and her eyes were all bug-eyed, and it's like, whoa, what's going on? Quite like that bit where she slaps Thor. That's pretty good. But no, cool. 13th. What do you think?
Yeah, there's a lot to digest with this book, and
Mm-hmm.
as kind of like I took it differently with the cover. I looked at it more as a billboard
Mm-hmm.
of like, okay, this book is going to be packed with a lot of occurrences, information, and obviously characters. And to kind of like what we just said a few moments ago, you don't really see the Avengers and the X-Men of this era together anywhere, and they really were together on the cover. But that's pretty much it. Other than that, it was just kind of a coincidental arrangement. But
Do you think?
mhm.
Do you think this cover looks like a DC cover? Do you remember
Yep.
when we looked at?
Yeah,
when
it's
we
very
looked
wordy.
at Brave and the Bold 113.
Hmm.
That's quite boxy in its.
It definitely looks like Silver Age DC.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. There's a lot of dialogue on the cover, and one thing I did find appealing back in this time, I love Spider-Woman, and I always had a likeness to the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, and to see this band of new mutants together, I ended up liking them too. So, and who didn't like Avengers, and who didn't like the new X-Men? So I'm like, okay, yeah, this should be interesting. Michael Golden, okay, just to take a quick moment. I am much more familiar with his art on Micronauts than I am anywhere else.
Yep.
And his tendencies are, he has great art, but his art kind of changes the more of a close-up that he does on a character. So when there's a facial expression or whatever, he's very good at that, but his eyes are always out of proportion, as you just mentioned a moment or two ago. But otherwise, the action sequences or whatever, yeah, he's a very underrated artist in my opinion. But I loved him on Micronauts, and to see him, his art in a book such as Avengers with characters that don't normally appear in Avengers was a treat for me, because I do like his art, especially for the first couple of pages with Spider-Woman. There, you don't have to draw the eye detail, so I guess it worked very well. But his art, particularly with characters like Marionette on Micronauts, fantastic. So definitely for listeners out there, definitely check that out. But yeah, nonetheless, it's great to see all these characters. Really, the main reason why they're all involved is because of Carol Danvers. At this point in time, kind of like Captain Marvel, his book was canceled, so was hers, very prematurely, I think. And this, I believe, would have been a Ms. Marvel story, somewhat. Maybe somebody can correct me on that, because the Ms. Marvel just had no ending to that first run. But here we are. There is a kind of conclusion. But what she went through is almost unspeakable. I mean, the concept, Professor, we've spoken with Jim Shooter before.
Oh yeah.
Maybe next time we see him, one of us maybe will. I don't know. I'm not going to ask him. You ask him where the hell he came up with this idea for Avengers 200. But to think that you could put that book behind you, you can't. But to Chris Claremont's credit, to try to salvage, like that's how do you do that? But here it is. Here's how you do it. And you had almost no choice but to come out with a story like this, a fantastic story, to kind of salvage Carol Danvers. And how do you do that? Look at all the characters he had to bring together to accomplish the fact that Carol Danvers did survive. Carol Danvers did return to Earth. Carol Danvers tried to live in tranquility, but lo and behold, her past catches up to her. And the fact that, to your point, Professor, to bring in Rogue to create a new character who's obviously immensely popular now. Her power set alone, right off the bat, you get to see the severity of it. And that's also traumatizing because for readers, you're like, Carol Danvers can't catch a break.
Yep.
You know, so Rogue was evil at first. Yes, she was evil once upon a time. Eventually, she'll join the X-Men, and then her links with Mystique and everything. So this is really the first time anyone would get exposed to Rogue. But I think Rogue, in a way, helped promote the new Brotherhood of Evil Mutants because we all know who the original group was. That's a tough act to follow. So the fact that they're in an Avengers book, you have Spider-Woman, who had a very fantastic solo run of her own. You know, here everything meets here, and I think it's a good book or a great book. I'm not going to say it's a legendary book. I think this is some of the best Michael Golden art I've seen, other than in Micronauts, but it depends on your perspective. If you're looking at this from the perspective of, oh, I have to get this because it's Rogue's first appearance, I think you're going to be in for a surprise. This is really a Carol Danvers book more than anything else. So those are my 2 cents. It's still a very important book in Marvel history, considering that it was really mopping up Avengers 200.
Yeah, so I agree. Avengers 200 is the blight of the Marvel universe for sure. There's no other way around saying that. You know, you can be political, you can be non-committal, but the book is a blight. It's well recognized as a blight. Chris Claremont, who was working on the Miss Marvel book, he's got his, he's bang on right to try and salvage some level of respect for Carol. You know, the girl's been done wrong. The fact that Rogue still flies and still has invulnerability is due to the Miss Marvel powers. It's the way it always has been since Rogue sort of like joined the X-Men, and from this as well. Other things to look out for in this book, the panel I've focused on right now. Check it out. Jessica and Carol have been friends forever. All right. There is a current, I was going to say a trend, or is a current idea. What would you say, Professor? Current idea that these two are going to become a little bit more than friends. And you know what? I absolutely have no problem with that at all. You read these last few pages of this book, and you can see how Carol's situation affects Jessica. You know?
Yeah, I mean, and they have the relationship has the roots in that very first page where Spider-Woman plucks Carol out of the river.
Don't forget what she tells the professor too, that she really feels her pain.
Yeah,
she witnessed the whole damn thing. She didn't see Rogue commit the act, but she was literally there right after Rogue left.
Yep, and they've gone through pains in recent years, like the last 5 or 6 years of them being best friends, and
so
you know, the ups and downs of that.
So if Marvel decide that they are going to Harley and Poison Ivy, Carol and Jess, I am totally okay with that, because I think it's a natural relationship that's been born out from this point throughout the entirety of their existence. It's not something that someone's just come up and say, hey, do you know what? Let's have these two characters go at it. No, these two characters have been friends for, it's a natural progression. This is how natural diversity occurs. You let the characters breathe and grow. Right? Is this book perfect? No, it's not perfect because Chris Claremont writing it, and as much as I love Chris Claremont, the dude writes a lot of words in this. It's a wordy book. I don't know which has got more words in, this or the Thor annual.
Definitely this one.
And the Michael Golden art isn't for everybody, but I think it's a lot. The art here is a lot more mature than anything Marvel were putting out at that time.
Yeah,
I agree.
There's no doubt. I mean, and for proof positive of that, as I mentioned, for the audience out there, you definitely want to check out Micronauts. Don't sleep on that. If you really like the art in this, then check out Micronauts. And there, he's cut a little bit more loose sometimes, but overall, he's consistent. I give him that.
I think this book has a lot of resonance in the current marketplace. I think with Rogue being announced as the bad guy in the next Captain Marvel movie, you're going to want to get on this book sharpish because that price is going to shoot up. All right. But,
was that announced? That's news to me.
No, it's been going around a while.
Oh.
Well, something that's in here that's been in that was infused in the story is the little kid named Matty Pryor. There was a lot of speculation back then that that's the Madeline Pryor that you would see roaming around as the Goblin Queen years later, but not one and the same. Just for anyone who reads that panel, because when I read it, I'm like, "Well, wait a minute, what? Oh, yeah, I forgot."
So this book's going to have some legs, all right. And I like the way they try, at least, do right by Carol.
Yeah,
one of my favorite characters that era. I love the Miss Marvel book. I love the Spider-Woman book. So this is going to be a win-win for me. Also, just for you completists out there, we will say that I kind of agree with the 13th idea that this was originally going to be a Miss Marvel story. Don't forget, Mystique's first appearance was in Miss Marvel number 16.
as Raven Darkholme.
As from May 1978. All right. And then the full appearance was number 18.
Correct.
So, there's proof in the pudding.
I just picked that book up a couple of weeks ago.
I already have it.
Yeah, that's an awesome run. It's a short run, and I prematurely cut short, but it's a great run to have for a lot of reasons.
Claremont was totally getting his groove on that book.
No doubt about it. Right.
And Cochrom's art, the last 3 or 4 books, tipping the top.
It was marvelous.
You don't want to miss out.
Exactly.
Oh, I'll tell you what. Okay. Right, guys. Thanks very much. We are done with the puns and the show. Don't forget to check out the UCPM for all your favorite shows, including Professor.
The No Prize Podcast, all about Marvel Comics.
Yay. Flipside Focus for all your indie news, and of course, the original OTP for interviews and the Definitive Crusade. All about the current crop of DC books. There you go. All right. So, Professor, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Machine.
Mr. Machine. 13th, thank you very much.
Pleasure as always, gentlemen.
As always. Be here in a couple of weeks where we go back through the sands of time for more old-timer comic books. Adios.